Have you ever woken up from a dream, heart absolutely pounding, completely convinced that what just happened was real? It's a terrifying feeling, right? Well, what if I told you that how often you have those frightening dreams might actually have something to do with your gender? Today, we're going to get into the surprising science behind why that might be. Okay, let's just jump right into the most startling fact. Did you know that in some studies, women report having nightmares up to twice as often as men? Twice as often! And welcome to Sleepedia, by the way, a little corner of the internet dedicated to the science of sleep and circadian rhythms. We're so glad you're here. Now, that statistic I just mentioned, it's not a fluke or some old wives' tale. It's a real pattern that shows up over and over again in sleep science. And I mean, look at this. We are not talking about a tiny little difference here. Some research points to double the rate. This gap, it usually starts to show up around adolescence, and it can stick around right through middle adulthood. So that leads us to the big, obvious question. Why? What is going on? To answer that, we're going to dive deep into what researchers are calling the nightmare gender gap. We're going to look at all the surprising science to really understand what's happening in our brains while we're supposed to be resting. Okay, so the very first thing you need to know is that there's no single easy answer. It's not like we can point to one thing and say, aha, that's the culprit. Instead, it's more like this complex, tangled web of factors, a mix of our biology, our psychology, and even the way we sleep. So let's start pulling on the threads of that web, shall we? We're going to break down 4 key factors that help explain this whole phenomenon, and we'll start with what's going on right inside our bodies. A huge piece of this puzzle is our biology. You see, hormones like estrogen and progesterone, they do a lot more than just regulate the reproductive cycle. They also have a huge impact on our sleep architecture, the actual structure of our sleep, and how we process our emotions. It turns out that nightmares can actually fluctuate with the menstrual cycle, and they can ramp up during big hormonal shifts like pregnancy and perimenopause. And then, of course, there's the psychological side of things. Statistically speaking, women are more likely to develop conditions like PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And wouldn't you know it, a really common core symptom of all of those conditions is having recurring, really distressing nightmares. So that alone is a major reason for the gap. And this is where it all starts to connect in a really fascinating way. Those hormonal changes and mood disorders, they can often lead to what's called fragmented sleep. Basically, it just means you wake up more often during the night. And think about it. If you're waking up more, you just have way more chances to remember the dreams you were just having. And that includes the bad ones. And finally, we can't forget about social factors. Some researchers believe that, in general, women are socialized to be more in tune with their emotions. We might also be more likely to ruminate, that thing where you just dwell on upsetting stuff, playing it over and over in your head. Well, that kind of intense emotional focus can provide some pretty powerful and often pretty anxious material for our dreaming minds to work with. So when you put it all together, you can really see how these different things build on each other. It's kind of like a perfect storm, right? You've got a brain that's maybe more susceptible because of hormones. You combine that with a higher exposure to stress, maybe a tendency to dwell on it, and then more awakenings that let you remember the bad dreams. For a lot of women, the average load across these different boxes is just higher, and that leads to a very real, measurable increase in nightmares. Okay, so understanding why it happens is one thing, but what can we actually do about it? Let's switch gears because here's the really good news. There are totally practical, scientifically backed strategies that can help you reclaim a peaceful night's sleep. This is all about building a solid foundation. You would be surprised how powerful basic sleep hygiene is. A regular schedule helps stabilize your sleep cycles. A wind-down routine, like reading a book or listening to calm music, tells your brain it's time to power down. And hey, if a nightmare does wake you up, a simple grounding technique, like just naming 5 things you can see in your room, can work wonders to calm your nervous system right down. And this is absolutely crucial. Our nights are so often just a reflection of our days. If you're carrying a ton of stress around with you, it's going to find a way to pop up in your dreams. One of my favorite tricks is a 10-minute journaling session before bed. Think of it like a brain dump. You're getting all those worries out of your head and onto the paper so they don't follow you into your sleep. Now, for anyone who has those awful recurring nightmares, this technique is a total game changer. It's called imagery rehearsal therapy, or IRT. It's this amazing cognitive technique where you literally become the author of your dream. You write down the nightmare, but then, and this is the magic part, you change the ending to something neutral or even positive. Then, you practice or rehearse this new version while you're awake. You are literally reprogramming your brain's response to that dream. And please note, this isn't some fringe idea. The science behind IRT is incredibly solid. It's considered a first-line, evidence-based treatment, and it's been proven to be super effective for so many people. It just goes to show you how much power we actually have to influence our own dream world. It's pretty incredible. Now, while all these tools are fantastic, it's also really important to know when nightmares might be signaling something more serious, something that means professional support. So let's talk about the clear signs that it's probably time to reach out to someone. So if your nightmares are happening so often that you just can't function during the day, if they're clearly connected to flashbacks or old trauma memories, please seek help. These are major red flags, and they mean it's time for a professional evaluation from a therapist or a sleep specialist. But the most important thing I want you to take away from this is a message of hope. You do not have to just suffer through debilitating nightmares, seriously. From specialized therapy like EMDR to very specific medical options, there are so many effective treatments out there. The key is just taking that first, brave step to ask for help.